essentially, you have to give out an idea to somebody that that person will say, wow, I love the thing. It should do great. It will do great. Once it's there, it's unbelievable. I want it. And the second thing you need to do is to say, to convince the person that you're the one to do it. So that's the very early stage pitch. The later stage pitch is much, much easier. Well, it depends whether you have a company that's doing well or a company that's not doing well. If it's not doing well, you have a big problem. If it's doing well, you don't have a problem. All you have to do at a later stage pitch is to say, I have 20 million users. I'm growing at 1 million users a week. Please invest. And you're done. Why? It's because the person will look at you and say, well, actually, okay, exciting, what do? You didn't even say what you do. You're just giving out what's happening. You don't even need to talk about it, you just have to say it's working. I got something that's working really, really well. Do you want to invest? And the investor will come to you and say, oh, what are you investing in? What is it? I'm excited, I'm interested. That's all you need to do. The pitch's job is to hook. The pitch's job is not to explain everything. It's just to start a conversation, to create a conversation. That's what a pitch is supposed to do. The pitch is, a good pitch is when somebody afterwards comes to you and says, I'd like to talk to you more about what you have. It seems exciting. Pitching questions? Yes?
So, in an early stage startup, is that good? Given the fact that your business model is going to change significantly as you grow, how do you present it in your pitch deck? Basically, if I come to you and I say, okay, this is a freemium business model. My business is based on a freemium pricing model. It's going to cost $49 a month, and you get this, this, and that. Obviously, a year from now, this is going to change significantly, either from a pricing perspective or from the features you're going to offer. What would you like to see? I mean, I understand you're at a growth stage. You look at later stage companies, but in an early stage, what would you like to see, and how do you present your business model?
Right now, we're doing growth. Well, we might do some very, very early seed as well, but never Series A. So it's an early stage company that is saying, this is my business model. I'm not, how should I say it? I'm not too obsessed about business models of very early stage companies, like the details of the business models. What interests me in the business model is to see that the founders have really thought through their business model and they really understand the space that they're in. So it's not necessarily about how they're pricing something. It's more about whether they can price it. And can this be sold? Is this what you're supposed to be sold, to sell in the space that you're operating in? For example, let's see. You're in the content space and you say, I want to sell content. Well, no, you're selling advertising, you're not selling content. If you're saying, I want to sell content today, tomorrow might change. It depends on the market. But today, if you say, I want to sell the content, I will say, tough, not good. I don't like that. It's dangerous. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked. Today, you sell the advertising. So that's what I want to see. But of course, I want to see a business model. I want to see that ultimately you're going to make money. Okay? We're investing in order to make money, so you'd better make money as well. Or at least have so many users that people love your thing and somebody wants to buy your users out, which is also a business model, buying the users.
So let's say you're in the messaging space, right? It's very hard to monetize early on in a space like that, whether you're WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, or WeChat, right? You need to build a massive ecosystem. You need to build a big ecosystem around your messaging platform to be able to eventually monetize. If you see, if I show you a business model like that, okay, are you going to be sold? Basically, you're going to say you need 3 to 4 years to build that ecosystem, especially in our part of the world, which is slower and you have much more competition. There's bigger players. Are you going to buy into that?
I touched upon the the monetization aspect, the timing of monetization earlier. A business that is a network business that relies on the value of the network, so the bigger the network, the more value the business has, is always a difficult thing, because you have nothing until you have everything. It's fun, but it's difficult. So very early stage, you're just selling, again, an idea, saying this thing should work. What's up? This thing should work. People want to talk, and let's do this via data. That's basically it. You know, investors went and invested in ICQ earlier, and they invested in AIM, and you had MSN Messenger, and all sorts of things like this. Why would WhatsApp work? Well, it worked for a combination of reasons. Some of them being the brilliance of the entrepreneurs themselves, hitting a very targeted population early on, and then it picked up and it expanded, and then the kind of product they had. Some of it is due to luck, and that happens all the time. But so very early stage, why should an investor invest in something like this? Well, that's why you have seed funding, and often seed funding is all about the entrepreneur himself. So we'll look at the entrepreneur and we'll see, is the entrepreneur good enough? Is he a strong motherfucker, or she? How powerful is that person? How powerful is that team? Do you have two people? Two people is much better than one person, by the way, especially if they're complementary. So do we have a good team, very solid guys? Do they know what they're doing? If so, we'll invest in them. So really, seed funding is really investing in the people, because they're going to change their model, they're going to move around, they're going to do all sorts of things. So that's why you can invest in a messaging platform, even though there are many dozens, millions of them. And then when you're invested as a seed funder, what the messaging platform needs to do then is to say, my early stage success is truly the creation of the network and the virality of the expansion of my network. That's it. And as you start expanding your network and it starts picking up steam, then very quickly you start raising cash, because the people look at this and say there's much less risk now that later on will hit the mother lode, that you'll have such a big network that you'll make bazillions of dollars. And that's it. But the early stage funding, the true early stage funding, is all about funding the people, which is why, to get back to the pitch, a pitch is not necessarily what you say, it's how you say it. And it's also what you don't say. It's being super tight in pitching shows to the investors that you're on top of your game. That's really what it is. At Leap, we're starting to look at seed funding. We might play some role in seed, because we like it, for fun, but probably as ourselves personally. Okay, seed is extremely high risk, but it's also extremely high rewards. Growth is much lower risk and lower rewards. If I'm investing 10 million in a company at a valuation of 50 or 40, let's say, and the company sells for 200, I'm barely doing 4x my investment. And 4x seems a lot and wow, but it's not that much if 3 other companies don't do very well. So on the other hand, when you invest in seed, you can do 100x. It's different. It's a different investment strategy, very different. Well, the question was, do we find enough companies? That question, we've heard it many times. We heard it 2 years ago when I was saying that we need a growth fund that invests significant amounts of money, up to 10 million. I heard it last year where people said, okay, now you started your company, you're gonna get hurt and you're gonna stumble because there's really no there's nothing to invest in. And we're still hearing it this year. I think that next year, we won't be hearing it anymore. We won't be hearing it simply because we will have invested significant chunks of money in a number of companies that are out here, that are doing extremely well, and they do need the money. If you want to do $1 billion company, you're going to need $100, $200 million in funding ultimately. So if you don't have the cash, you can't grow. You can't make it big, very big. You can't attract the talent. You can't do it, period. So to answer your question, yes, we're finding a number of companies out here, very exciting ones. We've got a really full pipeline. And if the whole pipeline pans out in the next few months, we will have invested half the fund in 9 months, which answers your question, really. Yes? Yeah. So what do we do about culture, and how can we help culture? Yeah, on a macro level. Well, first of all, we can talk about it. So we can make people cognizant of the fact that culture is a very important aspect of startups and companies in general. And that's the first step. And the second step is having companies that succeed ultimately and that will talk about their own culture. That will talk about the culture of taking risks, of being able to speak up in meetings, of a culture of results, as opposed to a culture of risk aversion, a culture of the possible, those kinds of things, a culture of the longer term, of being able to say, hey, let's not do this thing short term. It's going to hurt our chances of success in the long term. These kinds of things. All of that needs to percolate all the way down from the top to the bottom, to the lowest rung of the company. Because in the knowledge ecosystem, knowledge is the important thing. And knowledge is the brain, and the brain is the people that you have. And everywhere in your company, you've got brains working for you. It's not hands working for you. It's not muscle, it's brains. And the brains can have ideas, bunch of ideas, ideas that you never know can exist. And so if you don't push that, if you don't get people excited about sharing their ideas anywhere in the company, you're losing out. Imagine you have a competitor that does exactly what you do. But you are making all the decisions, and you are the brains of the company, and you've got 50 people working for you who are just workers, while your competitor has 50 brains working in the company. Who's going to win? So. Well, are we thinking about investing in educational hubs, etc.? Well, we are doing a lot of work, all of us. There is the Beirut Digital District that's set up, where a bunch of startups are there. Everybody's trying to create this this kind of hub of sharing of information, things like this. Everybody's a lot more open. We have these conferences, we have these workshops. Leap sponsored the workshops. Today and tomorrow you've got a bunch of people talking about stuff, Leap or not Leap. These are important things. These happen everywhere. Beirut is a small city. It's not that difficult to do education. And you have at the BDD, you now have UK Lebanon Tech Hub, which is doing a phenomenal job. You've got a number of initiatives that are there to help people and train people. At the UK Lebanon Tech Hub, I think every week there are workshops with very knowledgeable people about a variety of subjects. And it's happening, and that's why we're here. That's why we're doing. That's why I'm talking today as well. It's very important. It's very important. Yes. Sorry. Benefit corporations, non-profit, you mean? What? I'm a very big proponent of alignment, of all the stakeholders being aligned in going one direction for one goal. And that's why, again, I speak about culture, I speak about employees. We force our companies to do employee stock option plans, for example, stuff that barely exists here, doesn't even exist. In fact, in the Lebanese law, you don't have ESOPs. So what we do is we create a BVI, we do the ESOP, we do the thing. It's a legal rigmarole, but ultimately you get those done. And so we're coming from very far down in the benefit concept of everybody being aligned and everybody winning, from suppliers all the way to employees and management, et cetera, including the environment, et cetera. So yes, I like that, and we push companies to get everybody aligned. Otherwise, you have problems. Otherwise, you have inefficiencies. You have friction, and when you have friction, you're not going fast enough. You're not growing big enough. You're not doing what you're supposed to do correctly, and that's very important. Well, culture of the unicorns, unicorns being billion-dollar valued companies and more, is something that's pretty new. It's pretty new because achieving a billion-dollar company wasn't very easy 10, 15, 20 years ago. One of the reasons being that cash today is cheaper than it was 10, 15 years ago. But the culture of the unicorn is truly a marketing thing. Unicorns are being created um, because there's too much money in the market, and because they found that competing on funding is a very good way to crush competitors. The more money you have, the more money you can pay your employees, the bigger you seem, and the more talent you can attract, in theory. In theory. I'm not a big proponent of that. I like companies that are a bit more solid. In any case, in the region, we don't have that problem yet. There's certainly a lack of money as opposed to too much money. And so there's just even not enough talent. So we don't have that problem here. Do we want companies not to be focused purely on profits and valuation? Again, I want companies to build something that is ultimately sellable, a company that will be sold. And a company that is sold is a company that has lived for 5, 7 years and that has created something that is really, really valuable, because otherwise it won't get sold. It won't get sold on the strength of its latest valuation. It will get sold on something that it truly inherently has. So I'm not really excited about the unicorn valuation business. I will be excited the day those unicorns ultimately get sold to other companies that are themselves very strong, and that they know that they can take the products the unicorns have and multiply that. Because we're going to a bloodbath. I can see it happening. It's going to happen in the US. There will be a bloodbath. You will see a bunch of unicorns crashing hard. I think probably the first one is Evernote. Probably. We'll see. We'll see. Square went public, slightly different. So we'll see what happens. But it's irrelevant. $1 billion valuation is irrelevant. It's really what you do with it that matters. To go back to culture and the brains, why is really leveraging the brains of your people that important? I got a little anecdote for you. That was 1999, October 99, 16th of October, I think 15th or 16th of October 1999. I was, my company, bizrate.com, we were launching our marketplace. We had merchant ratings, and then we moved on to adding marketplace with product search engine and things like that. We're talking back in 99 where none of that existed. And we were scrambling to launch the new website on that afternoon, because the next morning we had a $4.5 million marketing campaign launching. So to us, $4.5 million was a very, very big deal back then. And we needed the site, everything needed to work. This afternoon, one of my lead engineers comes to me and says, the search engine doesn't work, I can't integrate it, it's totally broken. And we were using a third-party engine, because today you use a million different ones, but back then we used a third-party one that wasn't made for this, it was made for offline stuff. And the guy was really good, so I took him to his word. It's not like I could say, no, move over, I'll do it myself, and you suck. So he really knew what he was doing. So this time, I freaked out, because I had no more rabbits to pull out of my hat. And I brought all the engineering team, all the tech guys. We sat on the table, very, very big table around the booth, and we said, and I told them, we have a problem. It's 4:30 in the afternoon, we need to launch this thing, the search engine isn't working. What do we do? I am out of ideas. And one of the guys, he was at the time like one of the old guys in his mid-40s. He told us, well, we could use grep. Grep is this tiny little command line tool in Unix that has been used in decades for searching text files. And I never thought of it because I didn't come from that culture. The guy came from the 70s working in that, and we ultimately used that little tiny tool to run our search engine for 6 months. And he saved the day. It wasn't me. It was one of my guys saving the day. And this stuff happened over and over and over in the company. Not just saving the day, but also dramatically increasing the value of the company. And it's all about the brains. So nurture the brains that you have. Other questions? Yes. Well, disruption is good when the market you're disrupting is very big. Disruption is really good. I mean, we're living in an age of this constant disruption, if you want. You know, every couple of years, you have to rethink what you thought was you know, set in stone. So disruption is very good. We like it. We're not afraid. I mean, we love, you know, we're risk takers. I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years. I know risks. I've taken many risks. Now I take a few less risks because, you know, most of the money isn't mine. So I'm beholden to my limited partners, but still, disruption is very good. But actual disruption, not fake disruption, not pseudo disruption as in, you know, I'm doing it with a blue button as opposed to a red button or things like this. Real, true disruption is good. Sorry? Well, if something already works and people love it and everybody uses it very well and you want to disrupt it for the sake of disruption, it's not going to work. But if you're disrupting it and you're adding insane value that never existed before, then yes. Take Ford, for example. Okay, so he famously said that if you ask people what they wanted, they would have said they wanted a better horse. So that's what you do. So people love their horses, they think they're awesome, they're doing very well. They're not saying, well, you know, we want 4 wheels and we want an engine and we want fuel and we want to run for 400 miles without a problem. They don't know how to do this. So, yeah, you want to disrupt, but if you're going to disrupt something that works very well, you'd better have an insanely better value proposition. Increase in value for the whole ecosystem, not just one small piece. Suppliers, customers, everything. Okay, my partner Hala Fadel can't make it today, so she was supposed to give a second workshop on salaries. So I'd like to continue the discussion and discuss salaries a little bit. Startup salaries. That's an interesting discussion to have, I think. One of the major issues that we face as VCs is where does the money go? And knowledge economy is the knowledge economy, which means brains. And so a big chunk, the biggest chunk, especially in the earliest of stages, is salaries. And in Lebanon, salaries are always a very interesting thing to discuss because it seems like the CEO's job in a regular company is to get people for the cheapest price. And then they will wonder where people leave, and they leave the country, et cetera, et cetera. So one aspect of salaries is properly remunerating your employees. And if you pay correct salaries, internationally competitive salaries, you will hire the best brains. And if you hire the best brains, you have the biggest chances of success. Because again, as a founder in a company, the only thing you should be looking at is the ultimate value of the company, not early stage, later stage. Later on, when you ultimately exit, how big is your company? Okay, you spend 10 years of your life doing this, it better be worth it. So these people are key to your success, and you have to find the best people and you have to pay them the best salaries. However, money, cash, especially early stage, is always super tight. So what you do is you give them stock options. So you have to constantly play the game, play the balance of how much cash do I need to give them and how many stock options do I need to give them. And I'm a very big proponent of stock options for everybody because, again, everybody is aligned. When you give stock options and you give people salaries that they can live okay with, but there's a little bit of pain, that they're giving up something to get something much bigger later, then everybody knows that it's all about the end game. Okay? And stock options also are a retention component. You keep that person and you give them options for 4 years and they vest every month over 4 years, and the first year they don't vest. So for the first year they don't get any options. At the end of the first year they get the whole year. So they're incentivized to stay. And again, it makes management easier. So that's one thing. The other thing that you can do to ensure that your salary line in your balance sheet isn't too big is to lead the way as founders and managers. And again, this has to do with the culture. You create a culture of startups, of people saying the idea is not to make the money today, the idea is to make the money in a few years, but a lot of money in a few years. And therefore, startup founders should be very frugal and should pay themselves as little as they can afford. And that's difficult to fathom for some people. As little as you can afford. Every dollar that you save in salaries, especially yours, because in the very early stages, you don't have anybody but you and your other founders. Every dollar that you save gives you more runway, gives you more time to do things, gives you a dollar to spend on somebody much more intelligent than you who will come work for your company and then work your company valued a hell of a lot more. And that's the whole game. It's how valuable, how can I maximize my chances of success, and how can I maximize my success as well. It's the size and the chances of getting that pie in the sky. So it's very important for founders to pay themselves as little as possible, stay lean, 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 because in the end, you own a very significant chunk of your company. And if you don't own a significant chunk of your company because you made big mistakes early on and you got investors who, or silent partners who put in 50K early on or 30K, and he was your partner for 50% of the company and he's doing nothing, and then your other partner who was working with you and who had 25% of the company decided to leave for Brazil because he's tired of Lebanon, and you end up with 25% of the company and you're the only operating founder left, and you got a bunch of managers working for you, and now you're starting to have to dilute yourself every single round, and you end up with too little equity to really matter. That's something we also look at and we say that's not right, that needs to be fixed. So ultimately you always need a balance where everybody's aligned, where the founders are happy with the stake that they have, knowing that they will make a very, very big return at the end of the story, or at the end of the journey, and they will have spent years of their lives getting there. The investors need to feel that they will get the returns necessary And it's not just returns for the specific entity, it's returns, global returns for their funds, for example, like us, where you have to know that there are a number of entities that are going to go bust. So it's not a return of 20%, I'm happy, it's a return of 20% globally. So that's one thing. And at the same time, your employees, same thing, you want them to have the feeling that they put their part in, they got paid what they're supposed to be paid, properly paid, but at the same time, they got a massive upside for them. And in an ecosystem, in a working ecosystem, what really happens is when you have a big exit, well, the employees that had stock options end up making a lot of money themselves as well. You make huge amounts of money, the employees make over, depending on how many stock options they had, they make quite a bit of money themselves. And these guys end up funding new businesses. So you saw that there was an Endeavor report that looked at Silicon Valley and determined that Fairchild Semiconductor, I think, in the 60s was the company that's ultimately spawned about $9 trillion of value in Silicon Valley or something. Just because it created this big company and it exited, and these guys founded Intel and other guys founded, I don't know, other major companies that themselves founded other companies. And that's how it works. You know the PayPal mafia. PayPal mafia is a known term for all those guys who exited PayPal and had a lot of money, and they created startup funds, they created angel funds, they created seed funds, and they went and they started funding other companies, and those guys just created the internet ecosystem that we know today. Questions? Yes.
You were saying that employee stock options is non-existent today in Lebanon. So as a small startup, how can you compete with giants taking all the Lebanese brains and all what you can offer is some money for the food and stock options? Because as we see, when you tell a potential hire that will give you stock options, they don't know the value of it. They cannot understand the value because they've never seen a large exit in Lebanon yet.
I agree with you, it's tough. You got a tough job, right? I mean, you're the founder, you're one of the founders, you're the CEO of the company. It's a bitch. I keep telling that to people. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. It's not fun, and you shouldn't necessarily. You can band together with other people and start a company, or you can be employed at a company and get very good stock options because you know the value of stock options. How do we solve the problem? Well, one of the ways, hopefully, is when we do get very big exits, and we do have companies that exit with stock options, and those employees end up making millions, they will talk about it, and I bet you that the next step, you will see employees looking at stock options and thinking dollars, dollars, dollars. So, but we don't have that yet. I remember in California in the late 90s, it had become insane. You had lawyers wanting to work for free for companies just so they could get stock options in companies. You had real estate companies renting out offices to startups and asking for shares. It went crazy. It was ridiculous, but that's what you can do when you see the value of shares. And right now, they don't really see the value of shares because they haven't really seen exits. But it's starting. You know, exits are starting one by one. They're starting to happen, and then you will have money, and things will happen. But today, it's difficult. So today, as a real founder, what's your solution? Well, your solution is to double down on the convincing. is to double down on the selling of your dream, is to double down on the finding the right guys. Those people who will believe in your dream and telling them you will be part of it and this is the value I'm giving you. I can't pay you that much now, but trust me, the next stage, when we raise this money, and we're going to be raising this money at this stage, I will pay you that much. A little bit more every time, because now I can afford to pay you. But you also have these stock options. So that's what you do. You can't tell people work for peanuts for 7, 8 years, okay? Unless you're the founder of the company. But you can say to them, hey, you know what, this is a super tight spot. For the next 6 months, we're just gonna double down on the work, and we need to come out with this minimum viable product, and we gotta launch it so that we can have it, so we can raise the money we need to. And these are the companies I'm looking at to raise money, and this is what we're trying to do. Believe in me, take a cut now, and I'll reward you. Not only are you rewarded in stock options, but I'll reward you once we get our funding. One of the other things that I see a lot happening in Lebanon, and in the whole region. Lebanon, by the way, is much better than anywhere else in the region. Much better, okay? One of the things that I see in the region is this idea that I need to keep everything to myself. I need to make sure that I'm the only one who knows. Founders are very reluctant to discuss their plans with employees. I found, in my experience, that you can go a very long way if you instill confidence in your employees that not only do you know where you're going, but you trust them in knowing where you're all going. Again, it's everybody going the same route. You know the road. Now, there are things that they don't need to know, strategic stuff that you want to do. You don't need to talk about everything. But the more you tell them, the more confident they are that they're in the right company, that they're not just a cog. And that's how you can fight the big companies. They will know what they're operating, what environment they're operating in. They won't come into the office worried. On the other hand, there's always, an other hand. Some employees, and that you have to find which employee is what. Some employees are extremely scared of the unknown. So some of them need to just feel comfortable and know that what is going on is good and solid and stable. And for those guys, you have to be much more careful. You have to exude confidence and to tell them everything's fine, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing that. Don't worry, things are good. Others thrive in uncertainty. It's difficult. It's management. And again, also these things are underappreciated in the region. Very much underappreciated. So those are things we try to instill in our companies. Again, because if you want to grow very big, you need all of that. There's just no way out. You can't create a knowledge economy company with cogs and one brain. Yes.
Thank you. Yes, so there's a big factor over here, the factor of culture, because not a lot of the brain power in Lebanon, for example, would actually go for a startup as opposed to Silicon Valley, for example, just to take an extreme example. So how much would you say, I mean, in Silicon Valley, for example, if you wanted the brain power, you have it, because people over there are more, they tend to go towards startups more than they tend to go towards corporations. And you also have a lot of funding over there. So you have a lot of resources in Silicon Valley as opposed to Lebanon. That's pretty clear. Is there any advantage to go for a startup in Lebanon as opposed to Silicon Valley, for example?
Yes, there are advantages in Silicon Valley, but I know Silicon Valley. And a few months ago, I was in Silicon Valley in San Francisco. I was talking to a Lebanese guy who was working at one of the very large companies, the best companies in the valley, and he was telling me he was sick of the valley, and that happens a lot. The valley is not the only place you can work in. and be happy working. In fact, the Valley is a super high stress environment. It's a very homogenized environment, relatively difficult for women, as opposed to here, for example. Women also have it very difficult here, but in the startup ecosystem, the number of women is staggering. Absolutely staggering. You've got like probably 30% of startups are founded by women. You've got 70% of the startup teams have a woman in them. It's something that's insane compared to the United States. Look at the conferences. Look at the startup conference, this one. Look at the number of women in the conference. Look at the number of women here in this audience. You will never see that in Silicon Valley. Ever. It's insane. You don't know because you're used to this. Go to Silicon Valley, stay there for a while, you start thinking something's wrong. Something's wrong. And indeed, something is wrong. But you know, it works, it doesn't work. Anyway, this is just one piece of it. The other thing is, how do we stop people from going to Silicon Valley? We don't want to stop them from going to Silicon Valley. We want to do better than this. We want to get those guys in Silicon Valley and everywhere else to come back. The main point was, for decades, undercapitalization of companies made it so that companies would pay their employees a lot less than they should. And when you pay a developer $700 a month, you get a developer paid $700 a month who can't leave. The developer who can leave will leave. However, if you pay an employee a internationally competitive salary, which I don't mean raw salary, I mean ultimately in his pocket, at the end of the month, after having paid his rent and his taxes and everything, how much money does he have left in his pocket? Well, if you do that, why wouldn't you live in Lebanon? You would. I do. I came back by choice. And people would. Everybody I talked to said, yeah, of course I would. No, they pay now? I said, yeah, they pay. That's why we lobbied for 2 years. We did this 331 thing so we could pay people. It's that simple. It's that simple, really. But why do we need the money? You know, doing Amazon Web Services and a couple of other things and paying a couple of $1,000 a month in internet and server space is not what is going to hurt you. So that's why we need the money. We need the money for the brains. And we need the money to bring back the brains. And you bring back the brains not by saying, okay, oh, you were in Dubai, you're being paid $10,000, come back to Lebanon, I'll pay you $10,000. No, you don't do that. But if he's in Dubai, he's paid $10,000, in Lebanon, paid $5,000, he's going to make a hell of a lot more money. $10,000 in Dubai, you barely live. So those kinds of things. That's what you need to do. So I think we still have competitiveness as far as salaries are concerned. We can be pretty competitive because we don't have a lot of overhead here. It's not incredibly competitive. It's not India competitive, and it's not Eastern Europe competitive, which is a problem, but it's still very competitive. Then again, living in Eastern Europe versus living in Lebanon, I'll prefer living in Lebanon. Okay? Yes, Jordan, Egypt, Morocco. And how do we compete with these guys? Okay, that's maybe the question to ask. And we compete with them by creating the ecosystem here, by bringing back our people, because our people are really, really good. They run countries. I mean, they literally run countries. Go to Dubai. Right. It's incredible. You can't do anything in marketing, in media, without talking to Lebanese people. Everybody's Lebanese. Everybody. Go to London, the financial people, many of them Lebanese. US, anywhere. Okay? That's our asset. And that's the beauty of the knowledge economy, because the knowledge economy is these assets. And that's what we got to do. Good. Oh, whichever. Yeah.
Sorry, it's not really a question. It's just to add a point to the Silicon Valley question. Silicon Valley is incredibly expensive for people who live here, and it's incredibly expensive for startups as well. So you've got great infrastructure, but salaries that are just crazy. So if you compare, so it's not all rosy there. The other point is you ask how do you compete with the corporates? I think that question is very relevant in cities like New York, Paris, London. Here, and I'm new to Lebanon, so maybe this isn't true, but I have a feeling that the competition is not really against large corporates. You don't have that many large corporates here. The economy here is vastly dominated by family businesses. So it is already a very entrepreneurial environment. The question is, do you go to old school businesses who don't have the right culture, or do you go to equally entrepreneurial or maybe more entrepreneurial structures? But I think the fracture between the two is more about the culture and not about the corporate versus entrepreneurs.
Actually, not exactly. There is one space where we do have a problem. It's software engineering. Specifically in software engineering, we do have a problem. All of our software engineers are being sucked into a couple of companies. Okay, a couple of big companies that really know how to train them and grow them and and they're doing a phenomenal job. The solution is not to take them back from those companies, not at all. The solution is to create more of these people. And so what we need to do is to improve the training, improve the universities, and also improve, spark the interest into working for startups. Again, cultural, and getting the parents to feel like, oh, my son didn't go to this bank, but instead went to the startup. It's okay. He didn't fail. It's fine. It's fine. He'll survive at this startup. Okay. And so when I do talk to younger people, and they're like, well, I don't know if I should work at a startup. It's risky. I said, where's the risk? The least risky thing you could do in your life today, if you're a student, is to study computers and software engineering and things like this, because you will never in your life, okay, run out of jobs to work at. And if you work at this startup and it fails, well, the next day you're working at this other startup, and the next day at that other startup. So you don't have a risk. And those are things people need to learn. And this takes time, and we're working on that. It just takes a long time. Hey, John.
I love listening to your talk. It was amazing. You're a great operator, and Henri gave me some of the best advice last year. One of the questions that I have is that you say bring back the Lebanese, but why not bring Europeans? And why not just bring other people? I mean, Dubai, their strategy is to go and attract everyone. Why are we not just going out to Estonia, to Poland, to Russia, to everywhere, and just bringing non-Lebanese? I think it would be better for culture to have a diverse group of people. I don't know what your views as Leap on that is.
This was Jean Name of Touch Surgery, big company doing extremely well in the UK. And he was here last year talking as well. We need to, you're right, not just bring back Lebanese, but whoever. We used to have this problem of Lebanon being a place where you got bombs and it's super dangerous and super scary. But finally, the world is starting to figure out that Lebanon is just a precursor. Lebanon is really the laboratory for everything in the world. And now they all figured out that, you know what, the whole world is dangerous, the whole world is difficult to live in, so Lebanon is just like everywhere else. Except that we've got beautiful skies, and okay, we do have trash and things like that, but hopefully that will be resolved soon. And it's pretty fine living as well. It's really fine living, and I'm very happy living here.
You talked about giving stock options for your employees, but in Lebanon you said that wasn't very legal. There's a way around it. Could you talk more about how to work around that?
It's pretty simple. You create a company in BVI or Cayman, and that company is allocated X number of shares from the main company, and you give stock options on that company because BVI has stock options. So you simply do stock options on that company, and that's it. It's fairly straightforward. But at the beginning, it was difficult because all the lawyers here didn't know the system. But we have amazing lawyers, and they learn very quickly, and they create structures that work very well. And by now it's pretty standard. We've got standard systems. We know how it works. It's going much faster. The first couple of deals were difficult, but now it's become pretty standard. Yes. Sorry.
I just wanted to my question since it was from the very beginning about the wages. I mean, giving shares as part of the salary, the package. So just my question was how to decide or how to evaluate those shares. Like if I want to offer an employee, is there a formula or something that could help to give just the right one? And another point that was like something that we suffered from what we have been discussing regarding recruiting Lebanese or bringing them back. First, we used to put posts for jobs, vacancies here. For like 2 or 3 months, we end up with only like 10 CVs. So I think when I hear someone saying that we have really like unemployment in Lebanon, I can go laughing for like an hour saying because we've been looking very hard for people and we don't find. And we get sometimes funny CVs where somebody's just like, because he worked for 1 or 2 years, now he wants to become a manager, software manager. So I do agree with you that we need education for the resources in Lebanon, but what is the action plan for that? Because nothing's been done and has been done for a long time, or I mean, probably it's being done on a very small scale. And another thing, the last point is we should probably stress more on the media to really shed the light on technology and on Lebanon and the Lebanese and resources and how to educate them. Otherwise, all the efforts are going in vain. Thank you.
I'll go backwards. Educating the media, etc. Great stuff. Go for it. We can't do everything ourselves. We try to do as much as we can, and everybody should pitch in. Again, it's the whole ecosystem that needs to work together to do what needs to be done, and I agree with you. Salaries. There is no perfect equation. However, early stage, very early, if you're hiring a chief level position, CFO, CTO, CMO, whatever, very early stage, you should be looking at anywhere between, I would say 2 and 8% of the company for that guy. I mean, that person is going to be a quasi-founder, okay? And you need that. You need to make that person feel that that person is part of the team, as part of the founding team, although they're not founders. Because again, it's not a matter of the idea. The idea is irrelevant. It's really the execution. So if you're hiring somebody at a super high level, super important, very, very powerful guy or girl in the early stages, while the company has 10 employees, let's say, well, you need to make it worth their while. And these guys will need significant amounts of equity, like 5% stake or something. And we plan for that in the ESOP. So when you do an employee stock option plan, you size it depending on what you expect to give out. And if you have a team that is pretty full and pretty strong, then you need less stock options. Now, as for employees are concerned, lower levels, and you go, you end up in VPs, director level, manager level, etc., and you go lower in that. But I would say, you go in the 0.1% range for higher level guys, 0.5 if the guy is really good, and things like that. But it really changes. It depends on the size of the company. It depends on the importance of the person in the success of the company, again. So if the company is very small and you have very few people and that person is going to make a big change, well, that person is going to make a big change. How much worth is that? And that's why as a founder, you should be happy to have found the people who are this powerful that you want to give them equity, you want to keep them, because you will say, hey, even if I give them 5%, if I get myself diluted by 5%, it's totally irrelevant because this guy will double the value of my company. And this girl is an amazing marketing girl. I want her as my CMO, and she's going to get my brand everywhere. And it's totally key. What am I willing to pay for that? I can't pay her $200,000. Well, you know what? I'll pay her, if she can accept it, $100,000, but I'll give her 3% of the company. Okay. And if she says yes, then she's in it for the long haul. That's what you got to do. The stock options are a very, very good tool. Ultimately, they're a retention tool, but very early on, they're really a tool for giving packages that are not too high in salaries, because you can't afford them. And you can't hire, again, to go back to an earlier comment I made, you can't hire anybody to work in your startup. You need to hire people who are willing to take the risks. Some people will never take the risks, ever. So, yeah. Huh? I can't hear you. Investing. Yes. No, I mentioned it earlier. Vesting schedules and things like this. Again, I mentioned the 4-year vesting, standard vesting schedule. So when you do have equity, you will vest the first year. Nothing vests until the end of the first year, so people will want to stay, retention for a year. And then every month it vests for over 4 years, and then by the end of the 4th year, you vested everything, and you own the options. Which means also that after 4 years, towards the end of the 4th year, you may want to re-up people. When you promote them, you may want to re-up them. So people, let's say they've been around in your company for 6 years, they could be having multiple sets of options, vesting differently, etc. So what you also have sometimes happen, and I've had it happen to me many times, is somebody says, yeah, I'm sorry, I really want to leave. I found an awesome job, and I kind of feel like I want to move on. Say, sure, move on, but what about your stock options? Say, what do you mean about stock options? Well, you know that, you do your little calculation, okay? You're giving up $150,000 in current value of stock options. What? Yeah, current value. Now, next round, we're going to be at about $500,000 of stock value. Really? How? What so? And then that person sticks, guaranteed. That's what the stock options are for. And the cost of losing somebody this important is horrible for your business. So it's worth paying. Again, it's all a balance. And you should be happy giving out the stock options to people to whom it's worth something. Yeah. Other questions? Well, thank you very much.